Good day. I would like to talk to you today about conducting blind wine tastings. Now, I belong to a group of friends that have been doing this now for 15 years. And if I take you through the latest example, one that we held yesterday, and it was to celebrate the honeymoon of Amanda and myself, where we visited South Australia and went round several of the wine areas in that state. It was something of a special tasting, because to help celebrate our wedding with our friends that had been drinking over that long period, we decided to push out the vote. So let's go back to the concept of blind wine tasting, and then I'll take you through the story of the actual tasting that we conducted yesterday. Now, the way we conduct our tastings is that we taste 6 wines, and they're covered. But the host, who selects the wines under a theme, will write out some tasting notes for the day. Now, typically, these notes will give you the name of the wine, the year, the alcoholic percentage of it, the price, and then some notes relating as to what characteristics you should pick up on the wine. As we say, the bottles are covered with a number 1 through to 6 written on each one. And then they're served. Each person attending the tasting gets a scoring sheet. 6 boxes, 1 for each wine. You'll see that there's the wine that's named there. The notes are there, so these should equate to the tasting notes that you're given. And then a mark. So there's 3 for the nose, 3 for the colour, 7 for the nose, and a mark out of 10 for the flavours, giving an overall mark out of 20. So this is how the wine is rated by show judges. So each wine is served to everyone at the same time, and much discussion goes on, and some people say there's pomposity, and others describe it as bullshit. But this goes on during the meeting as people try to work out which wine is which one, because no one knows. And then progressively, the sheet gets filled with notes and marks. And then in this column, where the wine is marked, people try to work out which one they think it is. Then we come to the interesting part of the night. This is where we take a vote on which is the best and the worst wine of the night. And remember, at this stage, they've still not been uncovered. So we go around the room and ask one person, which was your top wine of the night? 1 through to 6. And then we take a scorecard. And then we vote on the worst wine of the night. Now, if I look at my notes from yesterday, I can see that wine number 1 was by far the worst wine of the night. Now, that's interesting because on the particular tasting that we did, it was one of the most expensive wines in the tasting. It cost $85. Now, the best wine of the night was a tie between number 4 and number 5. And number 4 came in at around about $60, and number 5 was also around about $90. As I said, I pushed the both out on this tasting. So how did I choose the theme for this particular one? Because the host gets to choose whatever they want. We visited 3 regions in South Australia. We went to McLaren Vale, which is very adjacent to the south of Adelaide. Then we drove right down to the south coast and came out through Mount Gambier to Coonawarra, which is probably the top red wine producing area of Australia. And then later came back to Adelaide and went to the Barossa Valley. So when we were down at Coonawarra, we visited Wynns, and I've picked up their top ranking Cabernet, John Riddoch. We also visited the Zima Estate, which is quite close to Wynns, and picked up their Shiraz. And this came in at a mere $26. Then from McLaren Vale, we visited Darrenberg and picked up their Dead Arm Shiraz. This was one of the most expensive of the tasting, and that was wine number 1. We also visited Chapel Hill, and what was interesting here was that this particular wine, the Vicar, is only produced when they have outstanding vintages. Now, I picked out this particular wine from my cellar. I've had it tucked away now for 15 years. You can see the vintage on here, if you can read it, is 1993, and it was the first ever Vicar. So I threw that one in to see whether people would pick up what was a really aged wine, and I'm glad to say that without doubt everyone did. And then from the Barossa, we have a Charles Melton, and this is his take on the Chateau Neuf de Pat, which he calls Mine Copes. And finally, probably my favourite, was the St Hallett's Old Block Shiraz, and this one comes in around about $90 as well. So did everybody guess on what is the best wine of the night, and what is their worst wine of the night? The next stage then is to go around the group, one by one, and ask people, Jerry, what did you think was wine number 1? David, what did you think was wine number 1? Alan, and so on, right round the group. And after everybody's had their guess, wine number 1, still masked, comes out, and the cover comes off, met with either much whooping or much wailing. Now, yesterday's tasting, out of 14 people that were there, one person got 4 of the 6 correct. Now, if you know your maths, you'll know that you can't get 5 out of 6, because if you get the last one right, you must have the other one right. So John did pretty well. But the other scores ranged from 2 to 0. No, everybody got the 1993, so good one. So there's a lot of people that weren't all that sure on some of these absolutely splendid wines. But it's not really the purpose of the blind wine tasting. It's to taste the wines without any preconceptions and to see what you really think is good. And I'm very pleased to say that the Zima, the mere $28, came out extremely well on the tasting. It helps us, the people that have been doing this for 15 years, to decide that price isn't everything on wine, reputation's not everything. It's what your palate tells you, and it's what you like, which is so important. Now, I hope I've given you a bit of a flavour for what a blind wine tasting is all about. It's not about getting blind drunk. It's about taking away what your eyes are telling you is on the bottle and actually tasting, looking and smelling what is on the glass, what is in the glass, and enjoying it. And then if you really like it, go and buy the bottle. You can go in with confidence because you know what it tastes like. As I say, we've been doing this for 15 years and we've had huge fun. I can thoroughly recommend blind wine tasting as a really good afternoon's entertainment. And I hope I've convinced you that you too can join in with the fun.